You're listening to Musings with Morales. Brought to you by Dialysis Education Services.
Welcome to Musings with Morales. I have a very interesting guest, somebody that I recently ran across on Instagram. And, it might have been one of those behavioral type of feeds because I don't think we were connected yet. But I saw this really interesting story about a group of people that were doing a relay race for 200 miles. Mr. Marc Coronel, thank you so much for joining us. Very interested in hearing about the recent feats, but there's a whole reason behind it, and then a whole story that you've got to tell us that I think will really inspire a lot of our guests. So welcome to the podcast, Marc.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here and spread awareness about kidney disease, right? Kidney disease awareness for sure.
Yeah, I got to start out with this. We've had a lot of guests on the show, and sometimes they're here to talk about kidney awareness, kidney health, prevention of kidney disease and illness, treatment of that. Today's not the last day, even in some cases, right? For some of our guests, they really drove that home for folks that are still undergoing things like hemo or peritoneal dialysis, right? But something that I'm so interested in, one of the reasons why we started this podcast is it's really easy for somebody like me, somebody like you, who's, and when I say easy, I don't mean to underplay what you've gone through or what I've gone through, but somebody who's had some skin in the game of for me, it was loving somebody and helping them with their disease process. I like to talk about dialysis because it's personal to me, and it became a professional thing because it's personal to me. Right. And for you, it's definitely personal. You're going to tell us our story today, but the thing I love about your story is that, I said it on a recent podcast, that I hope there's a lot more to talk about, than just that, right? Because the whole reason we overcome fears and anxieties is because there's something on the other side. Sometimes those fears and anxieties are physical in the form of illness. And I can see that you really have been a true example of there are things on the other side of getting through some of these trials and tribulations. So you're a cool guy is what I'm trying to say.
Thank you so much.
For what I see, and looking forward to the conversation. So let's kind of take it back to all the way back, if you will.
That's pretty far back.
Yeah. So how old are you?
I am 39.
39. All right. So let's go back to the earliest memories. There's some influences in who you are today. Some of it's part of the journey that you're going to talk to us about today, that the focus, as you shared in your opening statement here, but some of it's also just kind of where'd you grow up and who influenced your life and what were the cultures and the characteristics of your environment growing up.
It's really, really interesting. And, growing up, I actually grew up in LA, Hollywood, Hancock Park area, K-Town area.
Okay.
And that was my upbringing. I mean, that's just somewhere I'm very, very familiar with that location. I grew up with my father being in the military and my mother was an accountant. My father was always out. My mother was also traveling. So I had stayed with my aunt growing up, and she was a LAUSD teacher.
Okay.
PE teacher at that. And growing up, I had to read the LA Times to them every morning to just really, really understand that was their way of teaching me, not like A, B, C, pronunciate these words, and you're going to be able to say these words as you get older. And it's just something that was really, really embroidered, where reading a lot meant educating the self, right?
I feel that. Yeah.
So, I grew up there, and then, we go fast forward to high school, and I was a kid who got kicked out of different high schools.
I feel that one too, that I can identify with that one. Tell me about that.
Some people don't notice, but, fighting a lot.
Yeah.
Fighting a lot was one of my things. I was articulately there. Grades were there.
Yeah.
Just getting into certain altercations were something that I just couldn't avoid, right? It was just something like, hey, I bullied the bullies.
Yeah, yeah.
I just didn't, I stood for something there where, you want to pray on the weak. I'm small, but let's see how that goes.
What
you
was
know?
that part of it? That like my dad is he's a short guy, and he's always been like fairly slim. But my whole life, like people used to say, "Man, your dad's got little man syndrome." That's what they called him.
Right.
And man, he was bigger than life. I got to tell you,
Right.
he is bigger than life. I should say. I'm talking about him past tense. He's still here with us, right?
Right.
He was an iron worker. Lifted heavy weight and stuff like. But he was a little guy, and he was the personality that you're telling me was somebody that's smart, that's got the aptitude to go through the process of high school and maybe beyond, as you're going to tell us here.
Right.
But you had some issues with kind of proving points, whether it's about I'm small, pick on me, go ahead.
Right.
Or were there other things that were causing you to fight?
Yeah, what was interesting is that my one of my other aunts, my aunt's sister, was also my math teacher. And she was in her 70s and 80s, and I would see other kids pick on her that I just couldn't really take in, right? I mean, it's like, all right, so you want to mess with my family who's a little bit older, who can't really share too much, be vocal about it, just let it go. I said, I can definitely show face for that, 100%.
I think I would be the same way.
So
when you see your people in a place where it's like your environment, I guess you would say, and then there's people, your peers, picking on them. It's a no-go.
In all honesty, man, I just couldn't bear to witness that. I have some. I mean, especially with family, and an older woman at that. You have this thing of like really throwing crumbling up papers, throwing it at her, and I would get it back and create something, make that paper look nice again by throwing it right back, right? So that's where all this whole journey started.
Yeah.
And I remember I was approached by an individual saying, hey, we want to start a program. It was like the Scared Straight program. And we want to put you through a boxing program. And this would be one of your requirements to even graduate. And I remember it very, very vividly. I said, okay, cool, I'll take on
So was
boxing.
it to scare you straight? Is that what the purpose here? Or were you scaring others straight?
No, well, so like the TV show, Scared Straight.
Yeah.
So what it was is this kid possibly has potential. Maybe if we can revert his energy somewhere else, something else can
So you
happen.
were in a diversion program, basically.
Right, exactly.
Okay. Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
So
very familiar with these programs.
At-risk teen,
Yeah.
who could have made something out of himself, can possibly make something out of himself, but let's just give it a try. I was the very first in LAUSD.
Yeah.
Went through the program. It was an amazing program. I learned a lot about discipline. I learned a lot about owning up to your stuff and dealing with inner anger that I just never knew existed, where I was able to let that go in the boxing gym and really just be relaxed. Like, man, I don't got time for this right now.
I don't know if that's hitting home for everybody, but the inner anger and just have it come out relaxed. Like, can you speak to that at all? Like the I guess the power of that relaxation in something like a combat sport, something like boxing or something like previously. Were you relaxing when you were fighting before coming into boxing?
I was more relaxed when I was fighting.
You were more relaxed when you were fighting.
Because I have to be very alert to what's going on, and which leads to my journey now with having to be relaxed at my most downest moments, right?
Yeah.
When you're in the ring, someone wants to take your head out, right?
Yeah.
Someone wants to hurt you. Now, if you gas so much on the gas pedal, you're just going to run that gas, and you need to be able to run that marathon and not that sprint.
Yeah.
I know I'm not going to be able to knock him out quick because the kid's good and he can defend, but also, how do I find self where I'm in there trying to move while hitting without getting hit?
Yeah.
Now that takes a specific type of skill, like breathing, moving your feet, moving your head. All of these things all of these things come with a preparation that fight offers, right? Fight or flight. What do you do in this situation? Yeah. So it was a lot of understanding what coaches were telling me. A lot of things that, one time I remember my coach saying, when you see that opponent, think about him taking food off of your plate. And what does that mean to you? That your family's dependent on what is on this table right now, and you doing that. Bear in mind, this is just the amateurs. you can only imagine what the pros and their mental capacity of what they have to endure mentally to go in there and said, I'm completely focused. Everything else is completely blind. And this is what I'm going after.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Again, I'm not sure if everybody will grasp that. I mean, this is amateur. It's still, in aspiration of profession, right?
Right.
And this is a livelihood. This is a future. This is your kid's future, your spouse's future, if that's the circumstance that you have or that you want to have down the line, right? So every fight, there's a certain level of mental preparation. There's a certain level of discipline throughout a fight that, I mean, it looks easy, right? Like, oh, I could beat, people say, oh, I could beat so-and-so, right? Anybody could beat that guy, or, I'm in better shape than so-and-so. I could have beat him in this fight. But in reality, could you keep composure when the times get tough, right? Like when you're in deep,
Right.
When you get smacked or you get punched really hard and you see green, or your nose is pushed back in your face and you're burning in your eyes, you can't see anything. Like, what's that like? To be able to keep that discipline, to keep the form, the breathing. I kind of think about it like a sniper, right? Like when the snipers that are out in war, like they have to control breathing, their pulse, their posture, their comfort, all of this, their body mechanics, to be able to get the right shot, right?
Right. So, Mike Tyson says it well, is everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
That's right.
Right? Everyone has a plan. Now, you can reiterate a lot of these plans that come in every different scenario, but until you're actually here, like me being here today on this podcast, I don't know what to expect, and they say you live in the past, you're depressed, you live in the future, you have anxiety.
Yeah.
You live in the present, that's what the gift of life is about, and constantly opening that up and seeing what it has to offer. And you deal with that emotion as you go through life. And when we talk about that with the boxing, is that it's a constant discipline to getting your mind right. Mark, you have to be up at 6 a.m. to do your 3-mile runs. Mark, you have to be at the gym by 11 a.m. to get ready for sparring. Yeah. Mark, you have to eat right. Mark, you have to do this. Mark, you have to do that. That develops a sort of discipline factor that you can teach yourself. It's just, are you going to hold yourself accountable to doing these specific things to get to where you want to be, right?
Yeah.
And that's where that boxing thing held so much as far as the discipline factor to going on to what I'm doing now. Because, if I didn't get up at 6 a.m., I wouldn't go to the doctor. If I didn't spar in the gym, I wouldn't go to dialysis.
Yeah.
Right? So you use these boxing life disciplines to the fight of life. I went from fighting people to fighting for my life overnight. Right? So the idea of bringing the disciplines together was obviously a hard transition, right? Because you're going from thinking that you're healthy to now saying, oh my God, I might die tomorrow.
Right.
Right? And what's interesting about that is, and now I want to jump into the journey of when I was diagnosed, because what's interesting is that when I went into the doctors and all this discipline that I had from doing those runs and getting into the gym all day long, I went to the doctor's visit on my 26th birthday because I was covered by my father's military insurance.
Okay.
I walked in, I said, Doc, you don't have to worry about I'm in shape. You don't have to worry. Just approve me so I can start fighting pro. Just approve me to say everything's okay. What do you need from me? She says, if I don't call you back within 2 days, everything is perfectly fine. Doc, I don't have to waste my time. Do you want me to just turn off my phone?
Let's get it done. Yeah.
Let's just get it done. Done. Perfect. I was in shape. I ran every day. I drank water. I drank protein shakes. I was doing what athletes did. And you go into this lab, you meet with your PCP, and you think to yourself, you know what, there's nothing wrong with me. And then you get a call and say, oh, shoot, maybe what if there is something wrong with me? Because I wasn't prepared for that call. I wasn't prepared for a new fight of my life that would cost me my life.
Yeah.
Right? And when you get that call and they say, let's bring you back because I want to make sure that your levels, your creatinine levels, your other levels are aligned, that you don't have kidney failure, that it was just our mistake.
Yeah.
Your life starts to change just a little bit, right? You go into oh my God, what if this is me? What if this is me?
Yep.
So I get a call. I remember I do an ultrasound and I do a biopsy. You know that needle, the needle with a biopsy. It's humongous. It's long. They stick it in, and they pull some type of trigger, and it brings a piece of your kidneys into that jar. Now, what I didn't understand is that it goes through processes, right? You got a PCP, then you got a nephrologist, you got a pathologist, and then you got everybody in between. Not even that. You also have medical billing, doing CPT codes, and then you have other people who are... So it's just a line of people that I knew nothing about.
Yeah.
What are pathologists? Why does it got to go to a pathology office?
Right.
That goes there, gets right back to my nephrologist, and I was diagnosed with a rare kidney disease called FSGS. Focal segmental glomerulosclerosis.
We've met a few folks, and I think maybe some of them are even on with us now, that have experienced the same. And you know, when I think about the discipline that you had and kind of the surprise that you had as well, a lot of the folks that we see that experience kidney failure don't have that same journey of living that life of discipline, right? But I love that you kind of put the comparison, you know, that it's synonymous, right? That like you have discipline to be a good athlete, you have discipline to be a good CPA, a good lawyer. You also have now new needs for discipline to become a good self-manager when you end up with something that actually all that discipline didn't actually lend towards preventing, right?
Right.
You got a hand dealt to you. So that's where the pathologist, I believe, probably came in. It wasn't the simple case.
It wasn't.
Of like, hey, you've been diabetic for 15 years, Mark. It wasn't that, right?
Right.
It was like perfect until, hey, I want to turn pro. What? I got to go to check my second, you know, a second look at what my markers are like.
Right.
And now I find out that I've got
this rare kidney disease.
rare kidney disease.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, so now I'm diagnosed. Okay. So now you're diagnosed. Now you have, now you got to go through what's called a nephrologist. What is that? I mean, these ologists after a specific thing.
Specialist,
especially
right?
somebody who doesn't understand healthcare.
That's right.
I don't understand what these people meant. And, you know, I brought some props in today because I wanted to share with you what the journey is like when you deal and you become a patient from drinking water and protein shakes to now drinking medications, right? Like overnight for the next 6 months, this is what I kept every single one of my tubes for the next 6 months. This is how much pills I was taking.
This is a 6 month supply?
This was 6 months. So I had, you know, vitamin D supplies. I had, I don't
This
know.
is
Tamiflu.
This is
had
at
vitamin D.
What stage is this at, Mark? When you're taking all of these at
This
once?
is just diagnosed.
Just diagnosed.
Just diagnosed.
Were you needing dialysis yet at that time?
No,
Okay.
it was not.
All right.
So that's gonna come on pretty soon, right? But this was what my day in the life was like. Is really all these pills, and to be going from protein shakes to this many medications overnight. You think to yourself, like, am I dying?
Yeah. That's. I mean, got to ask you, for the people who don't know this experience, like, I've taken supplements and stuff, and I know that, like, I get a taste, right? After I take a certain number of pills a day, like, JP, his eyes popped open when he saw those. A good friend has been on the show with us, but does it impact your gut when you're taking?
This is diagnosis. This isn't just, you know,
stacking on more treatments and stuff like this, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So you have that, then you have that. So I went through this, you know, I was reading a lot about my emotional state, because at this point I can't keep up with this. It's now I'm trying to get a full-time job, but will this disease now affect me full-time?
What were you doing before
You know what? I went from boxing to being a boxing coach. And training,
Okay.
doing strength and conditioning.
Okay.
So I did a lot of that for a while, and I ran corporate wellness programs for motion picture companies.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah, which is really, really amazing. I think that's what really, really took me off to more of the social media and looking for a kidney transplant, right? And I didn't know it all played its part in the alignment of life, that you just have to surrender to life because you don't know what it presents itself.
That's an incredible message right there. I mean, it's fresh on my mind, and I can't think of who I've been hearing that. It's like once you put yourself to that point where you will surrender. Was it Nurse J who said that to us? Yeah, it was Nurse J, and she's on with us. She said hi, and Maria's with us. JP's with us, and we're definitely going to open up a time where hopefully you don't mind, we can have a few guests ask some questions.
Of course.
And you know, get as candid as you want, or
Of course.
you know, tighten it up if we need to. But so you're diagnosed, you're building up medications, and you're fighting for your life. I don't know how you deal with these things, man. Maybe leave them closed.
This is my why. You got to understand that this is my why. You know, I was speaking to my donor's. It's so interesting. I was speaking to my donor's mom, and she's like, "Your why?" It says, "Sometimes we are the sacrifice to our own mission."
Yeah. So can you elaborate, like how you interpret that in your life?
My whole life is dedicated to kidney awareness and disease. My whole life is dedicated to raise that awareness so that the people who are hopeless, we can make hopeful, and using the, it's sorry, you got me so deep. I'm like diving deep into my emotion.
I'm loving this because, you know, you're speaking like, this is giving me a new lens. You're speaking to giving hope that those feel hopeless, right? And quite often, we have a lot of conversation about like what's wrong to where people get here, right? And how do we prevent it? And all the upstream that needs a lot of attention. But 100%, you know, we've heard it time and time again from guests on the show that like kidney failure is not the end of life, but it takes a lot to muster up, you know, the discipline, the hope, sometimes support, sometimes the tools like education, and
right.
You know, you mentioned some things to me. I'm gonna let you kind of tell it to me, like the right partners in the fight, right? Like, how am I gonna get to where I want to be,
right,
if I don't have the right people around me,
right? So I want to interject on that. Kidney disease is in me, not part of me.
Yeah,
it's a very, very different thing.
Yeah,
it's in me, but it's not part of me. It's not in my mindset. It's not.
Yeah.
You know, I fight this with the 12-round fight every day, and I know I have to do that.
Yeah.
And I have to constantly train my mind to go in 12 rounds every day.
Yeah.
Which has definitely helped me along the way of my life, and using it to life struggles and really pushing the needle moving forward.
So one more time, your age when you were diagnosed was
26.
26. Today you're 39.
So that makes me 13. That's 13 years fighting this disease. That's dialysis, diagnosis, and transplant.
Okay, so we've got like the diagnosis part. Tell us a little bit about this dialysis journey. We're meeting each other really face to face first time. My last 25 years has been like training dialysis techs and nurses. Paco has been a big part of that as well. He's the producer of our podcast, but he's done a lot more for the business that I started in 2009. And, you know, we really focused on changing people's lives. And it's like really, that's not just on the side of the people that we work with and teach, but on the side of the people that they're able to serve with the most basic thing is like helping them to get their dialysis treatment.
Right.
But I think the really hard part is like, what about it the rest of the time? You know, I have life to live, and 12 hours a week or so, I got to be with you, Morales, and do hemodialysis. But the other, 156 hours, I'm coaching boxing, and I'm, I have a family, I have a job, different sort of things like this. So tell me about your dialysis journey. Were you doing it in center? Were you doing it at home? What sort of people made the difference in your journey?
You know, it's really interesting what you just said right now, because I had to meet with people who were healthy, and in my personal life, go to people who were sick. And then I was thinking how a healthy person has 1,000 wishes, a sick person has one. While you were talking, I had to pull up my pictures of what dialysis made me look to what a kidney transplant made me look.
I looked through this and I was just amazed, man. Like,
Right.
I've seen so many looks in your social profiles, like in your years of the journey. It's incredible. I saw one that you were really fluid overloaded, and it, like, I was like, that's not the same, not the same guy.
Right, right,
So you look different.
right.
You probably feel like,
I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go, buddy.
Yeah.
So back to the dialysis thing. When I first started dialysis, I remember very, very, it was so crazy because we were going to and this is post 8 years being diagnosed, right? And my wife said, we're going to a comedy store. And I said, babe, I just don't feel good. I don't feel good. Let's just go back home. Maybe I just need Tylenol or something. And I actually went to the bathroom. This was the last time I had urinated because I passed out to the floor because of the toxin buildups that were actually in my body.
wow.
So my wife found me on the floor because of the toxicity buildup, went to the hospital, emergency dialysis started. Through that 8 years, the doctor said, you're going to get on dialysis soon. How soon? I don't know, because it can fluctuate.
Yeah.
They can give me a time frame, but just not a specific day. I remember going in, and then I went into to the ER. They said, your creatinine level is at 25.5.
Oh, wow. Which should be what, in like the
0.8 to 1.3.
Yeah.
Normal.
Don't get it in my
Well,
head.
no. So we went through a little thing. It was like very slightly
Or,
high on him, and I was like, "Were you dehydrated?"
Right.
And I was like, "Oh no."
Right.
Right. He was fine.
No worries. Yeah. So understanding those labs,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Is that I started going to the doctor. I went more to the doctor than I started to go to the gym. Now imagine
Yeah.
your now routine from going 3 days a week is now 2 days a week or once a week.
Yeah. That was your passion. I mean, was your introduction to like fitness and that kind of stuff? Was it that diversion program? Was it all the way back there, or were you already like super
I was
active?
already super active.
Yeah.
I had been skateboarding. I had been playing other sports.
Kicking everybody's ass who looked at you sideways.
Pretty much, it was like skateboarders versus rollerbladers, and we want to see who can wax the curve a little bit more. The rollerbladers did it too much. The skaters did it too much.
Yeah.
And it just presented itself.
Yeah.
It presented itself, and at that point, I was like, maybe I should try something like this. Because either fighting can get me incarcerated or dead. Those are the only two options.
Yeah.
Now, I wouldn't have seen, because they say that there's two places that dreams don't become a reality. Those are those two places.
Basically, yeah. You're
Pretty
right.
much, right?
Yeah.
So
And,
if that was my trajectory,
good path chosen.
right?
For sure,
If
right?
that was a trajectory that was in my options to choose from,
Yeah.
let's make a quick right turn and see where that takes us.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, that's so symbolic, I think, of many choices in many people's lives, not just in the circumstance of putting up your hands and it going kind of in a couple different ways. But I mean, when we think about discipline as a whole, when it comes to wellness, the majority of the folks that end up with kidney failure in the United States
Or African American, Hispanics, and Asians.
and related to mainly preventable type of ailments, right? Like
Right.
hypertension and
Diabetes.
type 2 diabetes. So, again, I think it's kind of like when we have these choices of roads to go down, and there are times where we sometimes need to pivot and go
Go right or left.
Sometimes go back.
Go back as
right?
well,
Like turn
right.
the whole other way around, like, fast food every day, or, stop exercising. So you're at this point now where, like, you've went down a road that it was kind of life or death at a certain point, maybe, or life in prison or death.
Right.
And you went down this professional or amateur starting road with boxing, living a healthy life. Now you're at the point where you've got to manage your health on dialysis. What sort of choices did you find there? Was it the same amount of medications, more medications, bigger stack of bills? What were those roads that you had to look at and kind of make decisions at that point? Showing up every day, on time, every time, accepting maybe changes in the prescription. What were the big challenges for you there?
That it's a full-time job.
Yeah.
People don't realize, you're going to dialysis for 3.5 hours to 4 hours, but you also got to consider time travel to there, travel from back, and then recovery time.
Yeah.
So we do, you do the math. You do 8 hours a day times 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then you multiply that by 4.
Yeah.
That's a month. Then you multiply that by a year. Then you subtract that by the 87,660 hours in a year.
You've lost a lot.
You've lost most of your, and how do you bounce back? 2 years, almost 2 years was taken away from me.
2 years in the dialysis center.
Almost 2 years, yeah. And I wasn't able to urinate. I didn't pee. One of the first things people asked me is, what are you grateful for about getting a transplant? I said, urinating. It's just mind-blowing to people. But that's my reality.
Tell me about after the transplant, the first time you saw urine in the back. And I think about a good friend of ours. I don't know if you've met Sam Trevino.
I'm not sure.
Definitely got to make an intro. But he talks about his first time, and he's like, liquid gold.
Right. But see, one thing that I did see while I was on dialysis and want to share that little moment there is you see a lot more things that you just didn't expect to see. Especially those who have cardiac issues, diabetes issues, right? I remember sitting in and I looked to my left and I looked to my right. Where's John Doe?
Yeah.
Oh, he didn't,
Yeah.
Or, hey, buddy, how you doing today? I have to go in for surgery because my wound didn't heal, so they're going to amputate my leg.
Yeah.
Those were the types of conversations I had. It wasn't like, hey, man, how's your day going? Oh, it's great. It's not like that. And I still hold my pain in my shoulders because it's what makes me human. Vulnerability became my strength coming from there, and patience, that once I got a kidney transplant, I bookmarked those emotions to bring post.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? I will never forget those times where the LAFD came in and had to gurney somebody out.
I was going to ask you, I mean, you mentioned kind of like not seeing somebody or learning about what's coming up. Tell me about like, what's the most traumatizing, I guess, or the most horrible thing you saw in a dialysis center? You mentioned LAFD having to come in and gurney somebody. Anything that, like, did you see people bleeding? Did you see people getting
very normal
sick?
thing.
Did you see people sometimes maybe have cardiac arrest and have CPR done on them? What's kind of the I guess the range of things that you saw in a dialysis clinic?
Looking back now, you said what's the range? Is looking at the mirror and look at me lose my color.
Yeah.
Looking at me dying myself. I can look around and say, oh my God, people are dying, but I don't know their struggles.
Yeah.
I only now know mine.
Yeah.
And one of the hardest things to see is me deteriorate, me lose weight, me having to be on a specific, my dry weight, understanding cramps. I've never had cramps like that in my life, where that was too much of a pull, too little of a pull.
Yeah.
Only drinking this amount of water
Yep.
every 2 days.
Yep.
If not, I'd end up in the hospital because I had my
Blood
heart,
pressure
my
and
blood pressure,
congestive heart failure or something like that.
100%, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and it didn't land on my extremities. It went straight to my lungs.
Oh, really? So
Yeah.
you had a very low tolerance to the fluid weight gain.
Right. And here's the
Yeah.
interesting thing about that is that when I started to know that this was very, very early on. I bought a desk, something like this, very similar, just about, this big. And I laid it next to my bed because when I felt like I couldn't breathe, I would sit up in this upright position and just land and just be here for the next 8 hours.
Because laying down was just too much.
Because it was too much on my lungs. It was too much on my heart.
Yeah.
So I bought that table. I remember, on Sunday it would be pretty tough because I would do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Get Friday, Saturday, using ice cubes. That was one of my things, is using ice cubes to mentally divert me wanting liquid and eating crushed ice for. And look, I don't recommend anybody to do this. It was just the way I did it, right?
Yeah, I think it's that's very common. I've seen that in my career for the whole career. Ice versus water. There's like a lot of times like don't get in the habit of that because it starts to become addicting, especially with a lot of times people find this special kind of ice that actually is fun to eat, right? I think even on TikTok they have like a bunch of people selling these little ice makers, but it's they're like little snowballs, kind of like crunchy, right? Like the kind you get at Taco Bell.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's almost like a snow cone, right? And people get addicted to it and kind of want to crunch on it all day long, right? It brings back a story that I may have shared on the podcast before, but I had a patient that he was really having a hard time managing his fluid. He wasn't so sensitive to it. I'll tell you that in between a treatment, he could put on like 7.5, 8 kilograms of fluid in between a treatment. So,
oh wow!
I mean, he was pretty much really overloading himself, right? But he wasn't super sensitive to it. Didn't end up in the hospital from these things. He just had to do aggressive dialysis during treatment or ultrafiltration, meaning we pull the fluid out really quickly. And the dietitian told him, like, you can try freezing some grapes and using for the same, suck on the grape. But he went and bought a flat of grapes at Costco and still ended up with the same sort of weight gain. But he's like, I didn't drink anything. All I did was eat the grapes, which the dietitian told me was okay.
Right.
But it's difficult, right?
Right.
I mean, to control the fluid.
Very much so. I mean, this was my wife became my chef. This is what he needs to eat now. This is what he's not supposed to eat. And to eat without salt for the very first time.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, this is what my diet has to be like for the next however long I'm on this chair. What's
your diet like before? What are your foods? What did you grow up eating?
What did I grow up eating, or what did I eat? Because
well, let's say what was put on your plate growing up, because I know for me, like some of those things, when I had hair, it made my hair stand up if I ate it. And finally, when I became a certain age, it was I would do my thing, right?
Right. So, I come from a Filipino background.
All right.
So rice was, I can eat rice with anything. You give me some cereal, I'll eat it with rice. You give
Nobody knows about that here.
Right. So, rice has always been a fundamental. This is what you're going to eat, right? With eggs, with fish. So majority of the time it was like fish, rice, and I lived in a dominantly Hispanic community.
Okay.
So I would go outside, eat some tacos, tortas, burritos, and that was just my life.
So in the house was like Filipino food.
It was Filipino
outside
food
the house was
Spanish,
Okay.
Hispanic food,
Gotcha.
But it was all very similar and the same. There's a lot of things that are very, very similar within cultures, right?
Yeah.
And it was normal to me. It was normal to me to just go outside and see the guy with the ice, just bing, 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 go out there. This is the flavor I want. Very sugary. The ice cream truck would come in, have some nachos. That was my child. That was normal to me.
Yeah.
It was normal to have our friends get on a bike, go to the ice cream truck, get some nachos, and just have fun.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So what's the change now? Like that's what you eat. Let's go to diagnosis, then to dialysis. And a lot of times when people get diagnosed that don't need dialysis yet, it's kind of one diet, right? Like maybe protein lean.
Protein lean, right.
But then when they hit dialysis, it's like,
protein
hey, build it up, right?
Right.
And what was that like? Okay, now, hey, this is what we've been doing for a little bit. Mark, now you're on dialysis. We got to do this now.
Right.
New discipline, right?
100%.
Yeah.
I was like, I can have protein shakes again. There was like Nephrovite and all these other different protein shakes. Yeah, you can.
I've never seen somebody excited about taking Nephrovite, man.
Right. So, I mean, I had strawberry. I mean, I was like, well, where can I buy this? And, I was on a catheter. So I had to understand, well, there's a specific smell. There's a specific energy in dialysis.
Yeah.
And I wanted to always take a shower.
Yeah.
So I had to get my Tegaderm to cover my port.
Yep.
And I would spend a lot of money just on Tegaderm alone,
So you could take showers.
just so I can take a shower. I
Yeah.
had to change the head, and it was more so
Yeah, so
like
you-
this than
yep.
it was like this.
Yeah,
right?
not overhead and
Not
trying
overhead.
to avoid getting the catheter
right.
wet.
So I went around it,
Yeah.
and that was my life. That was my everyday, to be on that dialysis. And in smelling a specific way, my clothes would smell, and just looking tired all the time, right?
But this is something that a lot of people don't realize, and I haven't heard a lot of people talk about actually. It's like, can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Go ahead.
The smell. I mean, what's going on in your body when your kidneys fail that made you feel that way? And I'll give you kind of like what I've learned over the years, and then you tell me if it kind of matches up with what you're experiencing or what you were told. The buildup of the waste.
Tiredness, being tired all the time, right? I remember sleeping 7 hours, getting a full rest period, right? Like a full from 10 to 7, 6, then go to work. And I was like, by 12 o'clock, I felt like I worked a full day. The toxicity buildup is pretty intense. The itching, the, having to itch because of the buildup, the urinating frequently, foamy urine, proteinuria.
How did the itching feel? Like, give me a gauge on that. Like, somebody who's not experienced that. What is it? Like, you got bit by a mosquito? Like, give me something to
You can
compare
say
it
a
to.
mosquito multiple times, or a fire ant. A fire ant is actually perfect.
Yeah, we've heard that from friends as well. That was the comparison, and
Right.
he was like, "It feels like fire ants were biting me all the time."
All
And
the
I was like,
time.
oh my god!
At
Like,
sporadic areas.
yeah, how
right?
do you focus
Right.
when that sort of stuff's going on?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, you have this particular feeling, and you're like, the thing what I didn't realize before I got a kidney transplant is I got immune to being sick. We fly, we take off. When you start landing, you don't feel the descent, you only feel the landing.
Yeah, yeah,
When you're sick, it does this. Your body is accustomed to going down with it.
yeah,
Now, when you're accustomed to going through that, and then you get but you don't look sick, or, it'll be okay. Because here's what got me through dialysis. Everyone says, you look okay, you don't look sick. Now that I look at pictures, I'm like, well, thank you guys very much.
yeah.
Because, I was really sick, but you kept me motivated that I can somewhat feel good about myself. I needed to grasp onto something because, dude, you're in the lowest peaks of your moments. You're talking about not even seeing a light. And that was, when we get into deeper post-kidney transplant, I talk about finding that light. Finding that light when all else fails. They say our deepest fear is that we're not inadequate. Our deepest fear is we are powerful beyond measure. It is the light, not the darkness, that most frightens us. I got used to being in the dark,
Yeah, yeah,
that it was so hard to find light. Now I needed to find that light. And the people around me, the team I brought around me, together everyone achieves motivation. They were motivating me to keep fighting. I was with my donor the other day. She said, you know what, Mark? If you didn't show up for yourself, how could have I?
right. So tell me a little bit about this, because I did catch you shared some of your days in dialysis socially, and I saw some of the team, and I think there's a lot of positive energy, but you also gave the vulnerable side of things, and you spoke of those around you, and I guess the influence or the push that they gave you. Is there anybody in the team that you would highlight to say, like, hey, there were days where I wouldn't have been there at dialysis, or I wouldn't have finished the whole treatment, or I wouldn't have went back the next time, or whatever it might be that really showed you the carrot when you needed it.
You know, while I was on dialysis, I wanted to give up. And I'm looking at my ring because my wife promised me. She said, "You promise you're going to marry me." That's all I needed to hear. I needed to fight for something bigger than myself. And I had other people depending on me. I was thinking to myself, if I just say, you know what, forget it, I'll leave everything behind, I'm letting down the people who believed in me.
Yeah.
I'm letting down the community that gave a time and breath to listen to my story and say, you can get through this.
Yeah.
Because my mentality was this: if I told you once, they'll listen. If I tell them again, I'm just complaining. So I took everything they did and took it to heart. I took everything they said, that you will get through this. Just be patient. Be patient. But I think, you know, my wife, my sisters, my mother, my father coming by really, really, really helped me a lot.
Yeah.
And, you know, some people don't have that.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I'm blessed to have, is that I had a family that, you know, didn't understand what I was going through, couldn't understand what I was going through. You have a mother whose son is fighting for his life. What does she do? You have a wife or a girlfriend at the time who said, "You're the man of my life. You promised me you'll marry me." Because I told her, "Babe, I don't know if I can do this." I remember we were on the bed. She said, "Tell me the pinky promise." I'm 39 years old.
Yeah.
I was 36 years old, you know, 32, 33. She pinky promised, and she said, "Promise me you will not give up, because you need to marry me."
I mean, my wife is on I think Netflix runs your behavior, right? So there's a bunch of war movies, and I mean, I feel the same about what you just kind of the why and the team that you had around you. Like, I got to go home. You know, it was kind of, I'm seeing this in these movies that I've been watching with her at the end of the night. I got to go home. You know, that's why I'm going to get through this battle.
Right.
And I'm hearing the same from you. And the dialysis time, it was times where it was thick.
It's
I'm
easy
sure.
to give up.
Yeah.
It's so easy to give up.
Yeah.
The hard part is waking up at 6 a.m. every day, boxing,
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
The hardest part was waking up at 6.
Yeah. That was your start time was what?
5:55, out the house by 6. Start running, eat breakfast by 7:30. Done. Done. Every number, I recorded every single time slot, 4 to 7 every day. Take 3.5 liters of liquid out of my body. I weigh 175 kilograms. This is what you need to take out. This is what 3.5 hours look like. This is what that beep sounds like when you're done.
Yeah.
When you're done.
You know exactly what that sounds like, just like the bell, right?
It's just like 2:59 in high school and you're
Yeah.
saying, man, it's going to be summer break.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like every other day.
Yeah.
That's a perfect way to give that example. 2:59, summer break is right after that.
Yeah. You can't wait long. You cannot
You
wait.
just can't.
Right? Yeah.
You can't.
So, you know, you said not everybody's got that support network, and I don't know, were you the typical age of the person in your facility, or were they normally
They're a bit older.
a bit older?
They're a bit older.
Yeah.
I you know, a lot of people were a bit between 60 and 80.
Yeah.
Small demographic between 17 and 30.
And what did you see around you? Did you see people who had networks like you, with families and teams, or did you see people that were kind of there being transported and alone?
Right. So I seen
so-
some of that.
Yeah.
Because you know, it's interesting. The way kidney disease hit, and this, I didn't know this before, was that I seen a grandfather, a father, and a son
Oh, wow.
do treatment back to back.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, I'm guessing that was
Ya me voy. He would say, "Ya me voy. I'm leaving, Dad. I'll see you at the house."
Yeah.
He's in. "Oh, bye, Grandpa."
Yeah.
Father comes in. Son comes in, sitting right next to each other. Now that was pretty heavy for me.
I mean, that feels like an environmental thing, like probably a diabetes, you know, running through the family, because we kind of all grew up doing lived our life doing the same things.
Possible or genetic. We just don't know.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't
Yeah.
ask the question. I just seen a lineage of family members come forward.
Yeah, I mean, so when we talk about, again, like that big population, right? When majority are going to be on the preventable side. When we think about genetics, things like polycystic kidney disease or
PKD.
it's not as common, right?
Right.
So I got to believe that. Well, I think statistically we know that most people are in those environments where, like, hey, Morales, you're obese and your blood sugar's high and your blood pressure's high and your 10-year-old son does the same stuff that you do.
Right. Right.
Maybe not today.
Right.
He's not hypertensive or diabetic or whatever it is, but he keeps doing the same things I'm doing. He's going to be there, right? So something I think really we gotta just continue to preach that, because that's something we can do about, right? Now on the side of this, helping those that may have a hard time maintaining hope or maybe feel like it's hopeless. The family network, super, super important.
Very.
In my experience, I've seen people who have families, and I'm not just talking blood, but, family, right? People who care about them and are willing to fight the fight with them,
Right.
To walk with them, not to push against them, right? They do much better, typically, in managing. But then those ones that you see that get dropped off and that don't have the families, you had that support network, but I guess I would ask your personal experience with techs and nurses. Like, how important were they to you during those 2 years? And then for those who didn't have the support network like you did, how important were they for those people? Was there a difference? Was it a positive or a negative?
Some people's lives depended on speaking to those nurses.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have any friends outside of that. So their personal life was, I'm going to my dialysis unit to speak to my nurse.
Yeah.
And you build this community.
Yeah.
One thing that I learned about that is we're all fighting for our life, right? And you have this community. And I now think about what community really means. It's common in unity. That we just want peace with the pain that we go through. Because we do see a lot of hardship. We do see a lot of blood on the floor. We do see cardiac emergencies. We do see these people. But common in unity is something that I always what we pushed for while we were there.
Yeah.
Hey, Miss Jones. Hey, Mr. Smith.
Yeah.
How's it going today? Young man, this is, another day. We're here. You got to be blessed for it. And I was just really appreciative of because those statements mean more to me when you look at someone and they're fighting for their life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it means completely different.
Yeah.
You can't, when everything is going good, we can say everything's good, but say that you're doing good when you're fighting for your life, and as opposed to just saying,
You mentioned when you talk to these people, and it seems like they're always asking about you too. Like, how are you doing, right? And my experience as a professional has been, I've had so many people that I've helped over the years to get dialysis that I feel like they think about me more than I think about them. Like that they're so thoughtful about people, so appreciative of, like you said, today, because it could be any of our last day, but for some reason, those who have experienced the most adversity are the people that I've seen have been like the strongest in life. You're an example, but it brings to mind a memory of a patient that I always tell this story, and forgive me those of you who are with us every time, but one year, one of my patients, she asked me, hey, what are you doing this weekend? It's like, oh, it's my daughter's birthday. It was like her first, second, third birthday. Oh, happy birthday to your daughter. And, so went on about the weekend. 1 year later, on my daughter's birthday, she had a card. And I was like, holy crap, because it's hard to remember people's names. It's hard. But she actually took the time to I don't know if she took a note or she was just a genius or what. But did you find that with patients as well, that you were, in the chairs around you, that there was a profound sense of concern for the people around them, including the other patients?
100%.
But also the staff? Were they really concerned about the staff as well? Or do you feel like was
So I've
different.
witnessed both sides of the spectrum,
Mm-hmm,
right? But majority of the time, it was being really, really grateful,
Yeah.
right? Again, in life, you have what's called a what do they call that word? A patient who is who always takes his medications on time, who is always what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, we might have debate over this. So, some people would say that they're compliant.
That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Perfect. So you have compliant patients and you have non-compliant patients, right? So you see the both and the difference between the two.
Yeah.
Hey, how's it going? We got to pull out this. And the non-compliant patient would say, nah, I don't want you to take this out, right? So I was able to see both.
So do you feel? Let me dive into that, because that's one thing that I always get into. We just talked to somebody recently about the word compliance. You've been a dialysis patient before. Hey, you need to really try to restrict your fluid to this, restrict your potassium, your phosphorus,
Right.
your sodium, these sort of things, right?
Right.
But then you can go ahead and go home and eat what you want.
Right.
It's your choice, right?
Correct.
So like, I learned this from somebody else in the industry. Her name's Dory Chattel. She's a social worker, but she's also done a lot of work in education on both the patient side and then the professional side. And she says that, no, we really need to change the term from compliance to self-management. And, that nobody has to listen to anything. Like, I can smoke a cigarette right now if I want to, even knowing that it's bad for me,
Right.
That's self-managing still, right? I'm managing to put the cigarette to my
Right.
lip and inhale it, right?
Right.
What's your lens? I'm really interested. Like, when if a nurse were to say to you that, hey, like, you don't want to do what we've been telling you to do, like, and they called you non-compliant, you've mentioned you've got a transplant today. How could that potentially hinder your journey towards transplant if they called you non-compliant?
Very, very good question. Now, here's the thing. I went through 5 different transplant centers: California, Nevada, Baltimore, Maryland, Arizona, Florida, Dallas, Texas, Bayer, all these hospitals. Now, they were constantly taking my blood to making sure, number one, I was on the list, and number two, speak to my social worker to see if I was compliant. For me, I don't know about anybody else. For me, that was my championship round. So I'm going to do whatever it takes to get to that level of, let's just bring it back as an athlete, to get to the world championship belt.
Yeah.
I'm going to do the same thing. You see how I correlate boxing to my life with the struggle is I needed to, whether how sick or not sick I was, I had to make sure that that kidney transplant, that belt in my stomach now, this kidney.
I saw you show it off on some of your channels, and it seems like I've got a lot of friends that like to show their kidneys. Like, it's great.
So
man.
that is my championship belt.
Yeah.
My fight in every round that I have done was for this belt.
Yeah.
Whether it was California, Baltimore, Maryland, Arizona. Adversity introduces man to self.
Yeah. I feel you.
I needed to get there. And any hardship I had to go through, your phosphorus levels are high. I talked to the clinicians. I talked to the renal dietitian, the social worker. What would make me get approved for a kidney transplant?
Yeah.
What would make me to turn pro to fight in that ring?
So you're asking for the rubric all the time. Like, am I on the path? Am I on the right path?
Am I on the right path? But also, I'm not perfect. If dialysis patients here listening, I'm not perfect. I drank liquid. I would want to have a fry with salt on it.
Yeah.
I just, I wasn't that perfect dialysis patient. But what I was a compliant patient. And there's a difference. When it came to labs, I knew what those were going to look like.
Yep.
Your phosphorus levels are a bit too high. You got to take these phosphorus pills after everything you put in your mouth. Okay, cool, I can do that. But if you're telling me you can never ever have a fry from In-N-Out or something like that, then
So let's bridge a gap then, because I see that you embrace compliance. You embrace it because you have that you've almost got a military mindset of like, I need rules so I can follow rules because that's the way you are successful, is by doing this, this, and this, right?
My father was a military man, and yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. It, especially us as healthcare professionals, we really like, oh, non-compliant. But like I said, that could actually really hinder somebody's
Way to transplant.
yeah, because a transplant evaluator gets that word right, and it's like, oh,
He's not compliant. Yes, he won't take his medic. Yes, I get
Right.
that part. Right?
So I always think about this sort of scenario, and maybe it can open up more scenarios for us to
Please.
discuss. But my kid starts school at 8:00, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying that like I really, really know, but my wife is the one who drops. I think it's 8:00, somewhere around there, right?
Right.
So he starts school at that time. He's a little away from our house. We live pretty local here.
Mm-hmm.
He's not walking to school, like just not. I used to walk to school, but I don't feel comfortable with my kid walking to school right now.
Take an RTD bus.
Yeah, I just I just don't feel comfortable with it right now, right? So like we're gonna drop him off, but I got to go to dialysis at 8:00.
Mm-hmm.
And my choice now is that I can be on time to dialysis, or I can take my son and make sure he's safe to school. And I'm going to tell you, like, knowing like myself today, I'm going to make sure my son's safe to school.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to be late to dialysis. And now the nurse says, every day you're late. No, you have to be here at 8:00.
Mm-hmm.
How much responsibility, or how nimble does the healthcare system have to be to give us the actual package we need to be compliant or self-manage in a way that it meshes with our life? Because I still have a kid, right? And he needs to get to school, or, I have to get transportation, and like that takes, an hour and a half or whatever it is. I'd rather do it at home. Like how much of the needs are not being met to where people aren't just like, hey, I got to follow those rules to get to the prize belt. How do we accommodate people who are more like, I need to be customized?
There were so many things as you were describing, so many pinpoints you were hitting, and you're talking about the compliance of a patient is essentially it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna be very, very honest with you, man. I don't have the answer, because the complexity of healthcare has even drove me insane.
Yeah.
Right?
Would you say that's a challenge, or is that part of the battle of like, hey, give me something I can work with? Did you have those sort of battles of like, you're asking me to do this, but man, that one's impossible. You mentioned it took you away from the gym.
It did, but my life was more important than a gym.
Mm-hmm.
My commitment to my wife was more than anything else, that I show up for myself. My donor
Yeah.
telling me, show up. People are going to try to, when you start asking and you start looking, people want to help, they just don't know how.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's walk into 2 years of dialysis treatments. You've got a great network of nurses, and I'm assuming the techs you have good experience with the techs as well? Not as much?
Man, I loved every single one in there, man. They saved my life. I'm going to be real honest with you.
Yeah,
Those
all right.
guys who take the heat, take the punches, the verbal abuse, who take all of that, it takes a certain type of person to be in that environment.
Yeah.
It also takes a certain amount of person to say, look, I don't know what you're going through, but I do have the compassion and empathy to try to understand.
Yeah.
Because I'm with you 3.5, 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
They became my lifeline to my life, because I didn't know what this whole machine did with them changing the acids and them I seeing water flow out.
Yeah.
I mean, there was just a lot that I appreciate those individuals. I see them today. I still see them today, and am very, very thankful for the opportunity that they gave me.
Did you ever do home dialysis?
No. I was
so-
on a port. There's an
Okay.
interesting thing. I was stuck on a port for a year and 13, 14, about a year and a half. I kept that port in, kept it very, very clean, making sure that everything.
Yeah.
Through the process, I was using social media to try to get a kidney.
Okay.
So I read over 100 books, 30 books, just to read on self-help. I also read a book called How to Speak Like Ted and Tell Your Story. how to, the Untethering Soul. There were these specific books that I was reading that really, really put my life into perspective. I'd rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. A lot of those things made a lot of sense to me, right? Like, I got to fight, but even when I'm here in this garden, I got to know that I have a specific skill, right? When I started to try to do that for social media, going back to when I worked in motion pictures, I started asking people to help me. That's when I started to use that one. I don't like asking people for help too much, but I have one for every individual and every person I meet. Hey, can I get a favor from you? I don't want to keep getting favors from people because I just don't like owing. Can you get my story out?
Yep.
Sure. Let me see what I could do. I met a guy who was a very he was a editor for a very, very big publication. Came in one day and his mother had passed away, and I asked him, "Hey, what's wrong with you?" He said, "My mom just passed." And I said, "Hey, look, I can hold boxing mitts for you, and you're good to go." And just bear in mind, I'm already fighting for my life. And he said, "Okay, cool. Thank you very much." So I trained him. 2 days later, he came back and said, "Hey, son, what's your story? I didn't even get your name." This is how sometimes doing a good deed will show up in unexpected times when you least expect it.
Couldn't agree more.
I didn't tell him I had kidney failure. What I did was offered a person who was vulnerable from his life struggles.
Yeah, the vent.
And when that happened, he came back 2 days later. He says, "What do you do?" I said, "I'm just a trainer, sir, in this corporate wellness program and doing all of this." He said, "My name is X, Y, and Z. I work for this company. Send me your story. Maybe I can put it on my publication." Okay, great. Didn't think nothing of it. I was in high school journalism and growing up reading the LA Times. That's where all of this stuff started to really mold into who I was. Wrote a story. He said, "This is really great, but I can't get it on my platform because this is the type of magazine that I work for. Let me send it to my colleague." And I got a contributing platform on the Huffington Post.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you shared your whole story there.
Shared my story, and then I started writing stories about philanthropy and things of good.
On the
Huff.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, on the Huffington Post. So
Wow.
I was a writer from 2014 to 2017 writing stories about
Oh, wow,
people,
that's awesome.
Right? So that's where that growing up played its full circle.
Yeah.
That I didn't know I was
Fit
going to
right
be a
in.
writer
Yeah.
for the Huffington Post, especially a big publication like that.
Yeah.
When that happened, that's when we started to, I didn't know what a campaign was. I just knew I needed to get off this chair. That's it. By any means necessary, vulnerability became my strength to share my story. I can't pee.
Yeah.
I can't do this. I take this many medications. I only just drink this much amount of liquid every day.
Yeah.
Boxing showed me the discipline. Dialysis showed me patience. And I put those two together. When we talk about the dialysis thing, a lot of those nurses and people in there, don't give up on the fight. You'll get a kidney transplant. That's all I needed to hear. I didn't hear, "Are you okay? You're going to be okay today." No, they said, "You will get one." And I just grasped to that little hope that I had there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, got a call, had several people come forward, and my sisters, my donors, one of my sister's really, really good friends, she matched more to me than my biological sister.
Okay.
Her HLA matched 5 out of 6. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
That's like we came from the same mother and father. We're like we're brothers and sisters, but we really are. I mean, this is what it is,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I get a lot of her my inspiration from her philosophies in life. I remember going on to dialysis. I mean, the day we got approved for kidney transplant, which I got props, man. I have to share my story because this is my life. This is my lifeline of my jersey. My lifeline of my jersey. My lifeline of my story. I went through all these different hospitals. I got the acceptance letter, amazing. But then you get the December 10, 2019 is when your surgery is going to happen.
Oh, man. So how does that come? That comes in the mail or what? Like, how do you get that?
You know, good question. You know what? I got this when I went to UCLA.
Okay, so you got it at an appointment.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is when I got that appointment. And look, for those who don't know, when we talk about creatinine, sorry, I'm going to just take out my information. Creatinine here was 20.6.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're talking about high levels of creatinine level,
Yeah.
high levels of BU,
Yeah.
low levels of BU.
Lab panics when they come and report those kind of numbers, critical creatinines, right?
Right.
Which is actually becomes somewhat of a norm when you're on dialysis, right?
Right.
Having these abnormal levels fluctuating in between
Right.
treatment.
Right.
Yeah. So night and day, dialysis to transplant.
Right.
Right. Like no more fluctuations.
Right. It's so amazing. I'm looking at this for the first time since kidney transplant. To
Oh,
be
that's
honest with
crazy.
you, it's the first time. I bring this more than anything else. But
Yeah.
this is the patient educational manual for those who don't know what what a kidney transplant is. And then you get the kidney transplant discharge manual, right?
So you were transplanted through UCLA.
Yes.
And I actually know your physician, great guy. Have seen some of the posting you've done around like Rose Parade, and you've actually have got a lot of attention recently with some of the groups there at UCLA as well, right?
Right.
What's your role in patient advocacy, awareness with these groups now? Because it seems like you're pretty.
Well, I'm pretty involved with a lot of different, the thing about working with different organizations is that a lot of organizations have specialties.
Right.
Right. Like, I have FSGS. I work with an organization with FSGS.
Right.
There's organizations who have general education,
Yeah.
kidney transplantation, nutrition and diet.
Yeah.
And all of them play such a vital role in my life to understand what is getting presented to me, right? By continuously understanding notes from different sides of the spectrum, right? So, you get into this whole like, well, now how am I going to change this stuff? And everything that either people see now is all just because of my training habits. That's how I train. How I express myself with advocating for kidney disease is how I was training.
Yeah.
I was in it to win it.
I was talking about this in the beginning of the podcast. It's something that we want to talk about when we know about it, right? If somebody in our life has been affected by kidney disease,
Right.
if
Right.
we're a professional in there, in the healthcare arena, we want to talk about it. But I love that you tie in something that, let's face it, it's cool. Like people like boxing, right? People like the story of a fight. People like the story of victory, of the underdog, of a comeback. These
Can
sort
I
of
share
things.
something with you on that?
Absolutely, please.
People don't want to know how it started. Sometimes they don't even want to know how it finished. You know how people relate to you the most? The journey to get there.
100%. 100%.
That is what matters the most.
Yeah. Yeah.
So everything that goes on now is the journey to get there.
Yeah.
This is just the beginning for what I want to eradicate kidney disease. I want to be in the front line to try to help as much as I can, to try to do something to get people, not even just that, but to also get people to be more aware of signs and symptoms of kidney disease. That's why I do what I do. That's the root. That's my why, is that I didn't have information and no one was giving it to me.
Yeah.
So let me be that beacon to share. Look,
You can't be as strong without the info, right? Like you need the tools, you need the muscles to exercise, or
You need the weight.
exercises to muscle. Yeah.
the weights are the information.
Yeah. You're right. You're
The
right.
discipline is showing up and reading it.
Yeah. Yeah.
The fight is every day, brother. The fight is every day to finding what we can to do to make us get up every day.
Yeah.
That's my why. That is my why.
Well, you just did something really, I think, what's the right word? Exceptional and it was just within the last week and a half, right? That you
We can have two, yeah.
did this 200-mile relay. Tell us a little bit about it. Why? Who came up with this idea? I saw some of the video. It looked like it was not fun at certain parts. So, when I say not fun, that it was a physical trial.
Oh, for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. It's so amazing, man, because everything that I brought today, you're hitting on. So I have a lot of these things here that I'm bringing because I want to just show you this is what the crumbs that fall from the tree
Yeah.
look like,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So I want to share a little bit because I do have a lot of the things that I've done.
Man.
Right? So getting prepared for that 200-mile race. Where is that?
You got some weight there, man.
I'm sorry?
You got some weight there.
Yeah, you know what? I might not have brought it, but I will share it for sure. But leading up to that, right? Again, I try to find ways to push it. This is my... I got into a new sport recently called pickleball.
Oh, cool.
Pickleball.
Yeah.
I played pickleball. Got first. To do that, I ran a 10K to raise awareness about kidney disease.
So pickleball. What, Paco? Didn't Egan say he was playing pickleball?
Yeah.
Have you heard of Egan Inoue? So he's a MMA fighter, but also a world champion racquetball guy, and he was talking about pickleball with us.
Oh, that's amazing.
I don't know, a couple months ago.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
That's
super
amazing.
cool guy, but a pretty popular thing. Huh? So you're a champion
There-
pickleball.
Well, not champion. I got gold in a specific thing. I did a 50-mile bike ride.
Oh gosh. Thor.
Boxing, got some boxing ones, and then I placed fourth overall in the 5K
Oh wow.
out of 600 men, and bronze in
The
basketball.
life transplant games. Very cool. Very cool.
Bronze in basketball, and then a couple of other ones.
There's the Filipino in you, man.
There is, man.
Right, Paco? I think Filipinos are really good at basketball, right? And very into it.
They're definitely into it. They're definitely into it. So, I got all of these, and here, man, I want to give you this.
Oh wow!
You can have it.
really.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, man.
Of
That
course.
is awesome.
of course.
I-
Keep it so that you can understand that no matter what, we just can't give up. And these are just the appreciations of life that I can just look back at my rear view mirror, because that's the only time I'll look back.
Yeah.
Is to see all the accomplishments of
appreciate-
what
yeah, yeah.
I've received, and I want to give you this and
Really appreciate this.
to know
man.
that
Yeah.
you just can't give up, and you keep striving to keep going forward. You got to keep pushing forward. You got to keep moving. You got to accept your circumstances, because every day is a gift. Every day is a gift, and if you don't and aren't ready to open it, that's when things start to happen. Open that every day. Open that door. Look at the clock. Look at how beautiful life can be if you can appreciate the small things in life.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is, we started with, hey, this is a kidney awareness and, awareness of the journey that you've went through. But that message goes to so many audiences, that I think Open the Door was the one that really struck me, because when we think about, we've had a recent guest that a recovering addict, alcoholic. We've had people that have talked about mental illness and just, how these sort of things paralyze you, right? You could have been paralyzed by the fear of the diagnosis, but you chose to be disciplined about the regimen of medications and the diet. You could have been out on your own, but you chose to go through the discipline of dialysis. You learned how to raise enough awareness and find your way to reach the gold medal, or sorry, the championship belt, and get the transplant. And now you said that this is your life now. This is your purpose. This is your why, to share this message, right?
Right, 100%. 100%. But when we talk about compliance, and we talk about doing what I do every day, that still requires me to take 15 medications a day.
Right.
105 a week,
Wow.
420 a month, 5,040 pills a year just to stay alive.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's the sensitivity to taking those, like when you're supposed to, days, hours, like how sensitive is that
I don't go past 20 minutes. Like,
of what you normally take the medicine?
so like 9, oh my God, I have to take my pills. By 9:10, it'll be in my pocket, about in my mouth. But by 9:20,
So that's a job too, right? I mean, you're out living your life, so you have to bring that with you.
This is a full-time thing.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is definitely a full-time thing
Yeah.
where 15 medications a day, 105 a week, 420 a month, 5,040 a year.
What was it when you were on dialysis? How many? More or less.
But the same.
About the same.
About the same. Maybe like 10, 8. Phosphorus pills, taking
Yeah,
those
that-
like 6 times a day.
That was a big chunk of them,
So
right?
that's 6. Then
Yeah.
you got your blood pressure medications, and you got your protein, your vitamins, your Nephrovite. Is it Nephrovite?
Yeah.
Nephrovitamin?
Yeah, for your vitamins, yep.
And then, a couple of other things.
Yeah. Yeah.
But again, these are my Skittles, man. I got to look at the bright side, right?
Your Skittles, huh?
These are my Skittles. This is what's keeping me above float.
So you said something that really resonates with me. Like, I grew. This is not by choice that I am involved with. It is by it was necessity in growing up, right? Mm-hmm. And it's become a passion because of that experience. Mm-hmm. Then in the experience as a professional, you kind of mentioned the community. Those were my people when I was on the floor. Like when I go home at the end of the night, like I'm still thinking about my people, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, what excites you about the future? Innovation, care models, the way that it's being paid for, legislation. What's exciting for you right now? Because there's so much going on. I mean, from innovation of devices for people who need dialysis to medications that can lower your risk.
Eliminate proteinuria.
All of this stuff, right?
We're talking about, there's just so much. If we can dive right into it. Medical devices, limiting proteinuria, getting bills into action where we can really, really cater to those who understand specific languages.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't tell a person who's never heard of anything about anything of the body. You have your hypertensive diabetic ketoacidosis.
Yeah, yeah. What's that?
What?
Yeah.
You've already lost me saying hyper,
Right.
right?
Right.
So getting more educational literature out. Me going to Capitol Hill. I was recently in Capitol Hill for the New Era Act. And, for me as a patient advocate, that was one of the top pinnacles of my life and my career.
Can you give us a briefing on the New Era Act and what's the initiative there?
Giving more patients to accessibility to education, training fellows a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah.
There's 15,000 nephrologists in the United States. Only 200 to 300 specialize in rare kidney disease.
Yeah, it's definitely not the
100,
most attractive
It isn't.
specialty out there.
$125 billion to Medicare.
Yep.
Then we have $100,000 just on dialysis alone per patient.
Right.
We do that times 3 hours a day, times 40 chairs in a unit. That's just one.
Yeah.
There's more dialysis units, and sorry to bear this, man, but growing up, I seen a McDonald's at every corner. Imagine when you're so aware of what's going on, you see more dialysis units than that.
So I think when I fell across your social profile, we may have a few common connections, and there's like some people actually out there that are like correlating certain franchises with like the urban planning of dialysis centers. For example, that there would be like a Dollar Tree and certain type of fast food in most of the strip malls of certain dialysis chains. I haven't validated that, but I'm just saying that this is some of the commentary out there. You're right. Like we're in Bellflower right now, and I don't know. I'm 47 now, so I don't know if I could throw that far. But you could probably throw a dialysis center or throw a rock to a dialysis center from most places in Southern California, right? They're everywhere. Every city's got a few of them, right? You're coming from
Studio City.
Studio City.
I probably went through 50 already.
Yeah,
Just on my way.
On
here.
the way here. Yeah, yeah.
For
so
sure.
Very, very common.
For sure.
I feel the same way as you. As I wish it was eradicated. I wish there was a way to prevent it all. 100%. Hey, if we can't prevent it, I wish there was better tools. Tools that were more accessible, tools that weren't as hard to use to really empower. Because that's what I heard from you. Is like the more you learned, the more empowered you became. And I think about folks that I've worked with, talked with, that took advantage of home dialysis because they weren't transplant candidates per se. The experience that you kind of shared with us of what you saw in those facilities. I mean, it gives me flashbacks of like, family members saying, you don't want to see what's in jail because you're going to see stuff that you don't want to see and you will never unsee. You know what I mean? Does this comparison like kind of resonate with you at all? And again, this is personal family members saying, hey, get your shit straight, Morales, or you're going to end up somewhere you don't want to see stuff, right?
Yeah. That's dialysis in a nutshell, for sure.
Yeah.
You want to see some real pain? You want to see some real life?
Yeah.
I'm just living the residue of what I had to go through.
Yeah.
My eyes speak pain, brother. This is not.
Yeah.
I won't blink to pain at all.
Yeah.
Because you get accustomed to what happens in there.
Yeah.
And then you ask me, well, what was the craziest thing? Every day was chaotic.
Yeah.
Every day. So I couldn't put top 2, top 1, top 5. Because I was also one of those statistics.
We had a conversation not long ago, me and Paco, and you talked about you felt most peace when you were fighting when you were younger, right? And there's a certain level of callous to that, right? Like when you fight, the next fight's easier. When you get punched in the face, it doesn't hurt as much the next time, and you don't even blink. Right? When you hear gunshots in your neighborhood, first time is scary, but
Second,
after that, it's like,
oh, those are firecrackers.
Those are far away, or
Right.
that's they're shooting Lucky up the street,
Right.
or whatever it is, right? So
Right.
we said that, like, you hear gunshots, but you don't flinch, and I'm kind of hearing the same thing from you as far as like what you've experienced, that the level of pain that would come in is. You've got a bit of a callus there. When you talked about the way you felt on dialysis, getting used to feeling good, you developed a callus to being fatigued, to having that toxemia in between treatments, to being limited on what you eat and what you drink, right? So I'm really happy that you got the transplant in 2019. You're doing such great work today.
Thank you.
It's being shared. I see a lot of people watching you right now. I'm so grateful that you agreed to come on with us and that we get a chance to be a part of sharing your story.
Thank you.
I'd like to, if you've got just a couple more minutes, to just give a chance for the folks that we have with us. Any questions for Marc regarding his journey? Some of the folks that have been on with us tonight, I know they also are avid boxers. So anybody got some questions for Marc that we can get answered tonight, from the professional side, from the experience of a patient side, from the side of a family member that maybe is trying to support but really is not walking the same walk, right? And we kind of heard from a friend about 2 weeks ago that her story was about alcoholism, and how even you try and walk with us, we can't walk with you. We can only walk with somebody who's experienced the same thing. So the level of peer support that you're offering, I think, is incredible.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
For those that are watching, to be able to hear from somebody who's experienced it. And
Thank
like
you
you
so
said,
much.
still 12 rounds a day, right?
It's still 12 rounds a day,
Yeah.
brother. It's 12 hours in a day, 12 rounds in the boxing ring. You got to understand that 12-12 is for sure.
So, Paco, sorry, I didn't see there was a question up there. How did you deal with the uncertainty especially coming from the diagnosis to the dialysis days?
That's a good question. I lived scared. I lived scared that I can be taken away at any given time. Now you give someone who's really scared, who can box. There's vulnerability, there's strength, there's just so much.
Yeah.
But I had to identify which one was I going to cling on the most. Because those are two totally different things.
Yeah.
Vulnerability and strength go opposite day and night.
Yeah.
How do I find that middle ground? That's how I was able to do that.
So it's both though. There's the vulnerability and the strength, right?
100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
Going to the gym, I could still do that.
Yeah.
I went there
Yeah.
to be, I was told, well, you should go see a mental health specialist. But I want to face my I learned something really, really, really interesting while I was on there. They said the only time you can get through trauma is if you face it head on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I had to do every day.
Yeah.
Is face trauma head on to get comfortable with the scared with being scared, with owning to being scared.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it's crazy how similar stories come, or I should say, similar sayings come from such different stories. I've been talking about it, and it's funny. Have you seen the Skywalker's Netflix series?
Not yet. But I'm gonna watch it tonight.
Yeah, it's crazy. They climb crazy stuff and like towers and stuff that they're not supposed to, like get arrested, all this kind of stuff,
Oh,
right?
wow.
But I mean, it's scary. Like it's the kind of stuff watching it, you're gonna be anxious and
Right.
breathing hard, or your chest gonna get tight or something. But one of the things the one of the girls on the show said that was like in the circus, they say that your potential's on the other side of the fear, and trauma, fear. Like you got to find a way to get through it because that's where your potential is, right? And the trauma that you've shared with us, getting through it or getting over it. Like when I say getting over it, actually the trauma's still there.
The trauma's still
Yeah.
always gonna be there.
Yeah, but you are to the point where it's a strength. It's not a weakness.
Right. Right.
Is that safe to say?
It's a strength, not a weakness. This weakness gave me the strength.
That's awesome.
I there's no way, brother. There's no way. There's a saying that what success can show you, rock bottom can.
Yeah, yeah. Again, it's applicable in so many ways, right?
What success can't show you, rock bottom can.
Yeah.
And once you hit that point, it's like getting a billionaire, taking everything from him, putting him in a situation, and him being able to get out of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, dude, I know how to do this already. It's, and that's why education, being a leader by example. This is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it. Get there.
Yeah.
This is what you do.
Yeah.
Ask questions. Don't just agree. This is what I've learned. I didn't want to just be that yes man.
Yeah. So I think you said something to me, and I might have paraphrased Morales, but I kind of took from it that you'd fired many nephrologists in your journey. That you've had many on your team that just weren't. What was the saying that you said to me? Are you a healer or?
Are you a healer or a treater?
Yeah. What does that mean to you?
15 nephrologists, Jesus.
Wow.
Are you going to help me get through this? Or are you going to help me get to that? Are you going to treat me till I completely go on dialysis and need a kidney transplant? Or are you going to help me so that I can have better options to pick so it becomes preventative? Are you a treater or are you a healer?
So you was that the acceptance criteria for the 15 nephrologists you had? Did you find that 14 were not healers? Or were there other factors to that?
Other factors to that. I know that going into a hospital, I have 30 minutes on my first consultation. Every time after that is 15 minutes. Within those 15 minutes, I'm going to come as a compliant patient about the data, about the medication, and how I feel. A patient is an expert at being a patient. So these are my concerns. These are my questions. What are the solutions?
Yeah.
If you can't give me the bullet points that I've given you, we're not a fit. In order, the Lakers, Phil Jackson created a specific mindset
Yeah.
to these players. I want the same from my physicians. I want them not to tell me you should be taking this. Here are some options. What do you think about this? This is the data from X, Y, and Z. I got a referral. This might be a good person. It's really creating that team of people you can trust.
Yeah.
The transplant center, a team. The dialysis unit, a team. Your PCP, and finding people for your team, a team. When you graduate from your PCP, when you graduate from your dialysis, when you graduate from transplant, who's your team?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which nephrologists are you going to put on staff? Which cardiologists are you going to put on staff? What new PCP can you take on to say they work well together?
That's heavy, man. I gotta tell you, I've been in healthcare my whole life, and to think about that collaboration from like working in MSO and different sort of hospital settings, the hardest thing to do is to get people to work together, and the hardest thing to do when you have people that have to work together that are all super smart and opinionated is to get them to drop their ego when there's a better option. And sometimes they don't consider that like the smartest person on the team is, just like you said, the person who is the professional at being the patient. Like this is where I'm trying to get. This is what you're telling me I need to do to get there. Like provide me solutions on how to navigate my life, on how to get the more information so that I can achieve that.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I've learned through the healthcare system. Is creating my team.
Yeah.
Not what you want for me, but for me to be that star player and the coaches that can help me navigate my health.
Yeah.
Because when I get out of here, like you said, well, you said it's something, it's not compliant. We're going to change the word to what?
Self-management. Yeah. Self-managing.
This is self-management here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it starts with self.
Right.
Self-gratitude, self-care.
Yeah.
I don't care about the selfish. I care about the self-care.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, a lot of that is through awareness and education, which you're helping so many people with. That's our whole purpose here. When I get excited about things right now, because there are so many things like innovation and medications and devices and, you know, even artificial and implantable kidneys that are in the pipeline and regenerative medicines and things like this. It kind of seems like there's days where certain people won't need dialysis. Not 100%, right? The thing that really excites me is that we're actually having conversations about this, and you know, the conversations over the last 8 years have actually got to the White House level, right, where they're talking about initiatives to improve like American kidney health, right, and to provide more access towards the tools that we've talked about to be the right fit for me, whether it be in the center with great people who are qualified and compassionate, or it be in the home because I can take on some of this myself. Like, hey,
Right.
I can do it, right? Or maybe I have somebody who says to me, hey, like, I got you.
Right.
When you come home, I'll have your dialysis machine warm and ready.
Right.
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 Or it comes down to like, hey, just educating people enough to be able to look in the peripheral network of like people who might be willing to be a living donor, you know, a guardian angel, or to find ways to go through all of the different transplant centers. And, you know, we just talked to a good friend of ours, Justin, He was on his way to, I think, ASU, if I'm not mistaken, to go through. Was it ASU, Paco?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Arizona State.
Yeah, to get on that transplant list as well. So I get excited about evangelism, and you're an evangelist. You're sharing, news that everybody needs to hear, and it's quite often news that they don't know they need to hear right now. But and I'm not a religious guy, but I do know that like there are like sayings in most religions that like if you speak the word, whatever that word is, that it won't go void. So like you come over here and you tell us these things, and maybe I don't need it today, but one day I do, and then I got an example. Like you know what, we're going to share all your socials. So give us a way. Like how do we support sharing your message, Mark? You know, you've got social platforms. What's the, while we're on air, and then we'll get all the social links to attach to this episode. What organizations, what handles should we be looking at to hear what you're doing, to support what you're doing, to participate in what you're doing?
So my social media is the kidney_fighter. And I cannot be the person who say I love this organization, because everyone and every one of these organizations can fit to a specific personality.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
I just deal with other organizations because it fits for me.
Yeah.
Right? I want to know about kidney donation.
Yep.
What organization does that? I want to know about FSGS. What organization does that? You know, I don't want to be, with all due respect to other organizations I deal with, if they wanted to shout, every one of them are great.
Yeah.
Specific to what you want.
Yeah.
Right? What information do you need?
Right.
Right? If you're looking for a kidney donation, know about kidney donation.
Yeah.
What do donors have to go through? Don't just revert them back to the hospital and say, call this number and have them.
Options, right? I mean,
Right.
You don't want to say like, hey, you have XYZ disease, and go home and, or here's what you got to do. You got to do chemotherapy.
Right.
Without knowing that you can do chemotherapy, or you could do this or this or a
this.
combination of these things, right?
So a lot of the organizations are on my social media platform, and you can see it from there.
Yeah. Okay.
But, right now it's just really about empowering the patient who listens to this.
Okay.
That no matter what you're going through, someone's fighting a harder battle. And know that if you're listening to this today, don't give up. I can share that it's not, it's so hard to digest. Just don't give up because you have other circumstances, your child or me having other things. But when we're on empty, just know that you have 15 more miles till it goes completely empty.
Yeah.
And utilize that when you feel that you're on an empty gas tank to push forward.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Brings so many illustrations to mind. The digger who's an inch away from diamonds or gold, who gives up, right? Just keep going, like you said.
Just keep going, because you just don't know what life's offering, what the present that it presents itself has in store for you.
Yeah, I saw something else recently. It was I think it was Kobe Bryant talking about just time investment, right? And if you practice X amount of hours of something per year, that you'd be better than 95% of the world at it, right? And I think the same way about health is, we need to put the time in, right? One through education, one through application,
right,
or two through application,
right? There's also another saying too, by the way. This is a fight. This is a boxing one. It says, "Don't fear the man who can punch 1,000 times. Fear the man who practices 1,000 times."
Right. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
It's all relevant. I mean, it's all the same.
Yeah.
It's all, and you have to find that grit, that adversity of pushing, of just going, man.
So I got one last question, and then
Please.
some closing remarks. So the career in with the movie industries and the training, the wellness, the coaching of boxing, it looks like you're in the healthcare field now. So what are you doing today? Because I mean, I know you've got this big job that is a purpose in life to share the message as an advocate, as an advisor, a counselor. But what are you doing like on the healthcare side?
Consulting. So essentially consulting, right? I'm not here trying to create something big. I'm just trying to find solutions to the problem where I can fit in, right? Background is journalism. Background is healthy living, and finding a solution to problems that have created not on like a very, very huge platform, but more on the specifics, right?
Yeah.
I work with different organizations now where I consult. As you know, I'm falling back into the wellness again with that, because some patients need to have wellness components in their life, right? Not just, I'm going to see my PCP, they're telling me to do this, and then that's it. No, I actually work hand in hand with some of these physicians, which is really
That's
amazing.
awesome. That's awesome. Yeah.
So
And,
making passion into purpose, right? This is my passion. This is my purpose. You put those together,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. So Mark, again, this has been really enjoyable. Melissa, who helped coordinate, she just wanted to say, give her a shout out as well. Thank you, Melissa, for taking the time to coordinate with Mark on the schedule.
Thank you so much.
It's been nothing but great. Look forward to following you further.
Of course.
And on the side of when I ask like how can we support, we'll follow you, but also want to leave. As we do with most of our guests here, is just an open invitation. We're here to be a platform for stories. So if we haven't caught enough of the story to give all the lessons that we really need to take from this, you have an open invite here with us.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
And I'm sure that in the race or the relay and things like this, you've probably got others that would be good stories to share, and maybe kind of do a panel or something like that.
Of course.
Want to definitely
Most
invite
definitely.
you back.
Of
And
course.
we'll
Thank
keep
you
in
so
touch on
much.
it.
Yeah, of course.
Any last words that you can share for us? I think you've given us gold with the inspiration to not give up. I love the gas tank almost being empty, but like give us one last nugget, Mark, to the world on surmise the best advice from your journey, where you're at today.
You only fail when you fail to try.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Show up for yourself. My donor told me when I was getting a kidney transplant, she says, "Are you here?" I said, "Yeah, I'm here." This is right before we went into the surgery. She says, "Are you present?" I said, "Yeah, I'm here. I'm present." She's like, "No, are you here?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Because you don't know how long it took us to get to this very point. Appreciate life and pay it forward."
Yeah.
And that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
That's her words to me. And then I woke up out of that bed.
I mean, now my mind's going. So this is definitely a to be continued, because that's the side of the story that most people don't hear about. Is that whole conversation right there, like what's going through her head, right, at this time. So would love to, kind of as hearsay, or again, even if we can have a group conversation,
Of course.
kind of learn
Of
that
course.
side of it, because that's a side that more people need to know about.
Right.
Just the living donation side of it, what the evaluation looks like,
Of
what to
course.
expect before and after.
Definitely.
And the side that maybe is not as simple as like, I sometimes I speak business, but I don't mean to, but like, what's the ROI here? Like, man, it's incredible.
For those of you guys who don't know what that means return on investment.
yeah,
right?
thank you, Paco. I'm surprised he didn't call me on my acronyms, because he's like, every time I bring an
Every time he says,
what's the return on investment, right?
Right.
We've met a lot of people on the show, but I think let's kind of leave that hanging, so that
Of
we've
course.
got a cliffhanger. Again, open invite, Marc Coronel.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you so much for
Of course.
joining us tonight. And thank you, everybody. Look forward to another exciting episode next week, next Wednesday. And I think we'll have a couple other fill-ins, even doing some shooting, some live streaming on the weekend coming up here real soon. For Musing with Morales, Marc Coronel, Paco Ares, Paco Chaga. Have a good night, everybody.
You guys have a good one.
This episode has been brought to you by Dialysis Education Services.